Hi folks, Dan Gallo here from DG Aerobatics, back again with another video. On this one we're going to be looking at recording telemetry data from my model onto the T26, and then when I get home I'm going to look at putting it on the laptop and putting it on a spreadsheet to see what we've got. Now why might you want to record and log some of the flight data? Well, if you're running a petrol setup, you might want to look at the engine temperature throughout a flight. You might want to look at the altitude that you're at, revs per minute, and so on. On this model, I'm interested in the RPM, I'm interested in the ESC temperature, my pack voltage, and the current used, and then I can work out the watts for this particular propeller setup. And if I'm experimenting with propellers, I want to make sure I'm not exceeding the watt value for the motor and kind of equaling it out depending on the propeller I want to use. So that's what I'm interested in this example. So I'm going to have a flight and then I'll get back to you.
Here's how you set up the telemetry logging function on your Futaba T26. It's all done through the linkage menu. System type, go on to page 2. Make sure telemetry is green activated. I've got my download interval as 1 second on this particular setup. Back onto my linkage menu, page 2. Go into telemetry setting. Here's our options. Now we've got a logging switch here. This could be any switch that you want to actually hit to activate the downloading of the telemetry data. So I've set mine up as the right slider. So for example, if I want to record RPM, current, temperature and so forth on an IMAX schedule, just as I'm about to go into the sequence before figure 1, I hit the slider, the telemetry for the flight gets downloaded to the transmitter and saved on the SD card. Then when I've done the schedule and I've got to figure 10, I'll just put the slider down. That will terminate the downloading of the data, because I don't want to download unnecessary information such as takeoff and landing. So I've got my logging interval as 1 second and the rest I've just left as standard. So that's it set up on my T26, and I'll show you the rest shortly.
Right, so here we are at my laptop. We're going to take a look at some of the telemetry data I got from my last flight, which was a TAS Invitational 2026 IMAX sequence. So we'll see what we've got. I took the SD card from my T26 and I've just plugged it into the side of my laptop there. So before you can start, you need the log converter software. So I'll show you where to get that from. So go onto the Futaba UK website, and under support you'll see the software section here. Click on that. Over on here you'll see the product type. So we want PC and converters, and then down the way is this one here, which is telemetry log converter V 1.12. so click on that, you download the zip file. Okay, in that zip file is a PDF, which I'll show you here, which has got some instructions on how to use that particular software, installing it and actually converting your telemetry data into a CSV to put into Excel. And there's some examples of it in the manual here. Okay, so I've done that and I've put a shortcut on my desktop here. So let's have a quick look at what's on the SD card from my flight. So here it is. This is what's on the SD card. I'm going to click on Futaba. Now when you activate your telemetry function when you're in your flight for the first time, it creates a log file. This is the log file here. So I'm going to double click on that, and in there is my telemetry data so far from a few flights that I've done. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that and I'm going to put it on my desktop. Okay, that's it there. So I'm going to open up Telemetry Log Converter, and I'm going to find that last flight that I did. So this PC, desktop, that's my last flight that I've done just there. Futaba telemetry data file, and it will save it as a CSV. So that's what I want. Okay, so CSV was generated, so that's complete now. I can close that. If I go into my log file here, you'll see that there's my CSV from my last flight. Okay, so I'm going to double click on that and it'll open up in Excel. So we'll see what this is saying. So here's all the information from that flight. Pretty interesting. Okay. This is my channel data. I've got several channels that weren't actually being used on that flight, so I'm going to hide those columns just to make it a bit more easy to view the spreadsheet. So I've got temperature. This is my ESC temperature throughout the flight. My RPM, I've got current, voltage, capacity. Now over here is the time. Now it's in milliseconds, so what I'm going to do is, just so it's not such a big number there, I'm going to divide that by 1,000. So I'm going to type in 1,000 down here, and I'm going to copy that, go back up the top, I'm going to highlight that time column, and then I'm going to go paste special, divide. So that's it in seconds just there. Okay, just change that back a bit. There we are. You can change your decimal place if you want. So that's the seconds as passed throughout that IMAX schedule. Okay, now the RPM, you need to adjust that tailored for the poles on your motor. So I'm going to do that just now. Same process, copy. Oh, it's just started to rain. And I'm going to highlight that. There we go, that's the bottom. And I'm going to go paste special, divide again. Okay. So that's my RPM values on this particular setup. This over here is your slot numbers. If you recall, I've done a previous video where to actually how to set up the telemetry using the Dual Sky XHV. This is the slots that are in 1, 2 and 24. This is pretty interesting over here, current and voltage. So what I have been doing is making another column with the watts. The motor I'm using, the maximum wattage is 4,100, so I don't want to be exceeding that, so I can check that using my data here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go equals W4, assuming my laptop's going to work. It's times my voltage, which is going to be X4. So there's my watts here. Okay, that one there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy that down, copy, and I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom, and that will multiply my current by my voltage. So that's quite interesting, that actually. There's my watts there. I'll just put a little title, capital. So that's quite interesting. So as I said before, 4,100 is the peak watts on my motor, and I'm going up to 3.6, 3.8. So if I was going to experiment with propellers, maybe change the pitch, change the diameter, I would take some more telemetry and make sure I'm in this kind of ballpark and compare performance of the motor and so forth. So that's quite interesting. There's loads of information there for the whole flight, and depending on what telemetry sensors that you've got, that will come up in this file. So what you can do after that is you can create some graphs if you so wish. So you can highlight a column. I mean, I'm not an Excel whiz kid, by the way. I've just been using it a bit on and off, nothing special. All right, so I'm going to do a graph if I can. Here's one. So there's my graph of current. Now it's actually really interesting because every peak there is a figure in that invitational IMAX sequence. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 figures in the schedule. So this is what I'm actually getting each figure on the up lines over the top and then coming back down again on the schedule. So it's really interesting looking at this, seeing what my peak current is, and you can do it for RPM, you can do it for voltage, you can do it for temperature. So let's do another one for temperature. Here we are. So I'm going to highlight that. Oh, that one's in the way. There we go. I'm going to go up the top. And then I'm going to insert a graph for temperature. So there's my temperature graph, the ESC temperature. Also pretty interesting. Started off, I mean, it was a kind of warmish day. Started off at 35 and went up to around about 60. And also this trend is still there from each figure in the schedule, which is pretty interesting. So you can play around with that. You can see what telemetry data you've got. It's relatively straightforward once you get into it and you have a bit of practice. So if there's any questions about that, please ask, drop a comment if you wish, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.